It's such an honor to be here today. But before I start, because it's not really about what I can share with you, I want to hear from you first. Let's see some hands. Who has heard of Pain BC before? Awesome. Okay, who's never heard of Pain BC before? Equally awesome. All right. At the end of this talk, everyone's going to know about Pain BC, and you'll be able to take away some things you can use right away. I'm going to apologize in advance. My voice is much lower than normal. I have been I've had a cold all week, so if I have to cough, I'm going to just put the mic down, I think. So just a little bit about me. I'm not a clinician. I'm not a doctor. I don't have scleroderma. So I'm here more as an educator, and that's my role. At Pain BC, I was the education lead, worked with Pain BC for about 4 years, on and off. And so today what I'll be doing is sharing some evidence-based resources for you and show you how you can use them to help with your day-to-day. So as much as I'd love to assist you with individual medical advice, I won't be able to do that, but I can get you in touch with people who can. So let me tell you a bit about Pain BC, and the segue was perfect this morning. Listening to all of the advocacy work that's going on behind the scenes in the province, because that's what we do too, and we are here to support you as well. So Pain BC is a nonprofit. We're provincial, obviously, and our goal is to empower people living with chronic pain and any other concurrent conditions that they may have. So the way we do that is through education and innovation, and I'll tell you what we mean by innovation. One example is, until very recently, we've never had an office. So if someone said, well, where is Pain BC located? I would say, everywhere. We all used to work remotely, so we're very much connected with technology, and some of that I'm going to show you today. We are funded mostly through the Ministry of Health, and everything we have for our patients and for you is free. So here's some of the stuff we do, and you can see that we also have a big advocacy mandate, but what we do is a lot of the back end, sort of behind the scenes work. So we educate the public, but we also educate healthcare providers. So something I did this week, for example, is I went in and trained GPs on what Pain BC has to offer for people with chronic pain. And so educating healthcare providers and people living with pain is an equal part of our mission. So that's the good news, that we're here to support both the students here today, but also the people living with chronic illness. And I just want to acknowledge that most people with chronic pain are dealing with the idea of living with an invisible illness. And from what I know of scleroderma, that may or may not be the case for you, but I want to spend some time acknowledging what that's like. And when we work with people in pain, the biggest message we hear is that they want to know that someone's listening, that their pain is real, and they want it to be acknowledged. And so there are many people with chronic pain on its own, and a lot of people with chronic pain concurrent with something else, with another chronic illness. And so I just want to talk a little bit about what do we mean by chronic pain. Again, I'm not going to get into too much technical detail, but this really helped me understand the difference between what we call acute and chronic pain. So in acute pain, what we want to happen, and what our body does really well, is that we are protected when we're in a dangerous situation. So for example, if you're roasting a marshmallow on the fire and you get a little too close, your reaction is to pull back. And that's what we normally do, and that's healthy. And with chronic pain, it's a little bit more complex. It's not as simple as that. The body may not actually be in any danger. There's no fire per se, but your brain is interpreting the danger as that. And so that's when chronic pain can get a lot harder to manage and a lot harder to diagnose or to treat and to care for and to live with. And so a few of these differences, and this is important to what we're going to talk about later, so just bear with me a few seconds. As, most people with acute pain, might have had an injury, but with the proper care, maybe they've had some pain medicine. After about 3 months, 6 months, it goes away. And that's often what we tend to refer to as a hardware issue. And chronic pain or persistent pain or pain that someone experiences with chronic illness is going to be much more complex, okay? And so sometimes we call it a software issue. So it's not necessarily something we can pinpoint. It's a bit harder to diagnose. It's not as simple as repairing a broken leg or giving somebody pain medication to get over the initial phase of healing. It's much more complex. So today, we're going to talk about multimodal ways of managing your pain and how to get back to living well. And when I say multimodal, it's going to involve a lot of different things, which might have some pain medications or some other ways that are not medication-based. And so, I just want to bring up this definition of pain. And I struggled with this when I first joined Pain BC, because again, I didn't have any experience with this, but here's what I found really interesting. This is the definition of pain from a medical perspective. It's an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience. Yes, we all know it's unpleasant, but it's the word "and" here that's really important. So I want to draw your attention to this. It's not just a physical sensation, it's equally an emotional sensation or experience. And it doesn't actually have to have anything to do with actual damage in your body. It could just be the idea of potential damage. And so, as you can see, the brain plays a pretty big part in that. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we can use this definition of pain to learn to manage it better. Okay. The main message I really want to leave with you today is that you're not alone. There are 1 in 5 Canadians, 1 in 5 British Columbians who live with chronic pain. And those could be people simply with chronic pain on its own. Again, it's its own chronic illness. Or they could live with other chronic illnesses as well, as in your situation. So the message today that I'm hearing from all the associations here is we are here to support you, and you're not alone. There is hope. And speaking of hope, I just want to sort of, again, acknowledge who's in the room and what your experience is like. And I think the first step, from a lot of patients we hear this, the first step is we want to be heard. And we want to address the idea that my pain is real. You may not be able to see it, you may not understand it, but it's real, and it's something I live with every day. So can I just see some hands? I'm going to just read a few sentences up. If you feel like that resonates with you, maybe you can put your hand up. So, does your pain fluctuate from day to day, or even from hour to hour, or maybe even within the hour? Does anyone have that experience? Okay. What about, you find you can do something one day, it's going fine, and then the next day it's a completely different story. Okay. Who notices that their energy and their sleep and their focus, even just their ability to focus on a task or a conversation, that goes up and down day to day, right? And, I think everybody here, if you're experiencing chronic pain and you're here at the Scleroderma conference, it's likely you have more than one chronic illness, and that is a huge challenge. But again, you're not alone. And the final one is, your pain is real, but sometimes you feel like it's invisible to others. And you experience some stigma there. There's perhaps some attitudes or barriers that you've experienced. Yeah, okay, great. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's really important. So I'm going to get you guys to acknowledge that pain is real, and I just want to hear a little bit from you experiencing it and living with it. What are the words you use to describe your pain? Sometimes naming it and calling it, and identifying it is really a big first step to accepting and living with it. So maybe I can call on a few members of the audience. Just share a few words. How would you describe your pain? Maybe I can start with Tiasha.
Frustrating and unexpected.
I'd say it's life-changing because your whole being has been affected and your day-to-day activities. So it's really a whole paradigm shift.
Maybe we can hear from a couple more people.
It's life-changing, but I also feel very unpredictable as far as planning my days and anything that's coming up.
Thank you for sharing that. Where you're questioning even your own imagination. Oh, great. Okay, so we heard lots of words like unexpected, it's life-changing, Sometimes we're questioning it ourselves. I want to share a little bit that pain is a serious issue, whether you have scleroderma or not. In the province, this is something that we need to address. And so here are just some statistics. Pain is the most common reason why people seek health care. So that could be for their GPs or going into the ER. And in fact, 28% of all ER visits are related to chronic pain. And people with chronic pain see their GP much more often, 10 times out of a year based on the national average of 3.8. So as you can see, this is a big concern. It's also due to 2 times more hospital admissions. We talked a bit about hospital today. And it's also attributed to more and often unnecessary medications in some instances. But the reason we're talking about statistics is really because we want to help and we want to prevent someone going into what we call a downward pain spiral. And living with chronic illness is hard. And again, that message of hope, not being alone, is extremely important. That's what we want to share today. So we want to avoid these statistics, which is people with chronic pain are 4 times more likely to experience depression and anxiety. And we'll talk a bit about how psychology impacts your pain and how you can also improve your pain using psychology tools. It's also 2 times more likely let me repeat that. So people living with pain are 2 times more likely to commit suicide. And suicide has been a lot in the media this week. And so this is something we need to talk about. It's something we need to bring up and not be afraid to have that venue for dialogue. So let's create that today. I want to talk a little bit about that downward pain spiral. And this can happen in a lot of different ways for different people. But someone with a chronic illness or with chronic pain might start off being perfectly fine. And they might have an injury or they might have a diagnosis, and perhaps in your case it came at a certain time in your life. And the pain that you might experience will continue and lead you into a downward spiral if you focus on it. So here's a typical example. Sometimes people with chronic pain are fine before. They might have a motor vehicle accident, and their pain, they wait for a healing period, but it keeps going, right? And then they may be afraid to exercise because they don't want the pain to become worse. And if they're not exercising, then they start avoiding it more, right? And if they're avoiding exercise, then their muscles are getting tighter and weaker, and they'll become even more fearful of going out and doing those activities. And you can see how this perpetuates, right? If you're not going out, you're not socializing, you're not engaging with the things you love, and then you become isolated and you become depressed. And this is not what we want to have happen. And so when I go out and train healthcare providers, or what Pain BC does behind the scenes, is we give healthcare providers tools to help you get out of that spiral. So this is what we'd rather see. And you'll hear this a lot when you're talking to healthcare providers. They want to focus on your function, right? Have you heard that before? Anyone? The word function, right? So what it really means is, instead of pain being the focus of your life, being at the center, your life is at the center. And you can still live with pain, but here are the steps that you need to break that pain spiral. So the first step is acknowledging it, accepting it, and learning more about it. So educating yourself is a huge step towards empowerment. And then, of course, being active. We're going to talk a lot about that today. Continuing to be active with the right paced activities. You're going to, get back out again, do the things you love to do. You might go back to your social groups. It's really important for your self-esteem. And instead of pain being at the center, you are at the center. And so this is our goal together. And I'm going to show you some resources that will help you break the pain spiral, as we call it. Okay, so let's do some interactive fun things. I'm going to show a short video, but I want to hear your thoughts afterwards. So the short video I'm going to show is about self-management. And you may have heard of this term or concept before, you may not have. This video will explain it, but I'd like to know your thoughts, okay? So just hang on to a few keywords that jump out to you, and bear with me 2 seconds as I get this set up.
Have you ever tried to change your lifestyle? Maybe exercise regularly or eat better? With everything going on in our daily lives, it can be hard for any of us. Obstacles like financial worries, lack of transport, and stress at work can make it hard to make a change. Add an ongoing or chronic health problem like diabetes or depression that sometimes affects how we feel, and making healthy changes can be even harder. Self-managing is what we do that affects our health. This includes taking care of ourselves and health concerns, like taking medication or monitoring how we're doing, managing our daily lives, such as our diet, exercise, and dealing with emotions. Sometimes we do a good job, and sometimes it's hard. But we can help each other to self-manage. Supporters could be a partner, relative, or friend of someone with a chronic condition. Or maybe they are a healthcare provider. Like great partnerships, self-management support happens between people who have important expertise. For example, healthcare providers are experts about conditions and their treatments. People are experts about themselves and what works for them. Working together leads to better health. For straightforward healthcare problems like a broken arm, a doctor will ask questions, do an examination, diagnose the problem, and take the lead in developing a health plan. It's a bit different for chronic conditions. Chronic conditions generally impact a person's daily life. Doctors and healthcare providers can become a guide instead of a director. It doesn't take much time, but it takes practice to learn new ways of working together. Partnerships can also have their ups and downs. Either partner can have a bad day. For example, healthcare providers may get frustrated by not having enough time to spend with patients, difficulty communicating with patients, rules, regulations, and policies, and what might be happening in their personal lives. Patients may get frustrated by not having enough time to spend with healthcare providers, too much jargon, rules, regulations, and policies, and what might be happening in their personal lives. Partners might not share everything about their lives, but understanding that everyone faces personal challenges is just part of a good partnership. And what can happen with this new partnership? Better results for everyone. People who take an active part in their health generally have more successful healthcare visits. This partnership between healthcare providers and patients helps people live healthier lives. It is cost-effective too. It's a better way to effectively work together for everyone. Patients and healthcare providers. Partners for Health.
All right, what jumped out at you? Feel free to share honestly, what are some of the things in there? Okay, we've got somebody here. We're gonna put you on a mic so that we can also capture this.
The little bag of chips and the can of pop waving at the guy. that just made me laugh. I thought it was funny because it's very true.
Ah, I see. So being tempted by the little things on the side. Yeah. Lifestyle. Go ahead. Oh, sorry, too much. Try again.
Lifestyle changes because they are very difficult because we are creatures of habit.
True, especially if you're used to living a certain way, and then after, let me turn that down, after diagnosis of chronic illness, there's no rule book, there's no code book, especially with a rare disease that even healthcare providers may not be familiar with. So finding what works for you is going to be the most important thing. Right? Thanks for sharing that. Anything else that jumped out? We have somebody here.
What jumped out at me was it was a little simplistic. That we do know that we should be not eating chips or we should be getting out or whatever. And it's sort of, to me, it's kind of missed that. It was very simplistic, and if we did all those things, I'm sure we would all be feeling better, but we don't always do them. And it's more around why can't we do them, or why aren't we doing them? And that sort of missed that piece of it.
No, thanks for pointing that out. So again, how much can we convey in a 3-minute video? And it is extremely upbeat, which may be giving a certain message as well. But it's true, it is simplifying the issue, and asking that question why is really getting at the key. I'm glad you brought that up. We're going to talk a bit about that. But this video I wanted to show with you, oh, we lost it. It's okay, it'll come back. Because it's something you can use as a tool, you know, to remind yourself about the collaboration that you can play with your healthcare providers. The main message that I'd like to focus on today is that you are experts in your own health just as much as they are maybe experts in some of the medical system. And together, that partnership, you know, is what's really going to help you live well and find what works for you. And that dialogue between you and your healthcare provider is so important. And just so you know, healthcare providers here, obviously, are very open to that. And we are also training them to have that sort of approach, right? The other thing is you might want to use this video as a tool for your family and friends. So I'm going to show you a bunch of things today that, you know, they may be a bit simplistic for you because you're way beyond that. You know, you're living it every day, right? And maybe have been for decades. But these tools are really great to help explain what you've got or what you're living with for other people, you know, friends and family as well. So the message really here is that self-management, which is a concept and it's an approach, is really key to living well with any chronic illness, but especially in your case because you're probably dealing with multiple, right? So for those of you who have scleroderma and chronic pain, this is really going to be your key for success. And so you can't do that on your own. You need support, and you need specific tools, knowledge, and resources and skills to do that. And so I'll show you what we can provide for you today from Pain BC, but your healthcare provider can also do this. And it's going to require an open mind approach for you to change, you know, what your daily life looks like. So we talked a little bit about the paradigm shift of you know, going through accepting that, okay, I've got these chronic illnesses and how do I live with them? All right, so the question is, there's no quick fix. So what can I do? How can I manage the pain? And here's what the latest evidence is teaching us. So I'm going to summarize this the best I can, but your healthcare provider can talk better about this. Has anyone heard of the biopsychosocial approach or framework before? Does that ring a bell? No? Okay. I know Tiasha's like, yeah, I've heard of it. Awesome. All right, for those of you who are new to it, the biopsychosocial framework is a really good way to remind us that pain is impacted by many factors. It could be an injury or a broken bone or a chronic illness, but it can also be informed by everything that's coming from outside us. For example, stress. Has anyone realized or noticed, like, when I'm stressed, my pain is worse, or I have more inflammation, or I can't deal as well with things in my body? Has anyone experienced that before? Yeah, okay, I'm living it this week. I got really busy last week and my body, I got a cold, right? So that's one example. But if we take that even further to chronic pain and to other invisible illnesses, the biopsychosocial framework explains that, yeah, okay, if my mental state, if my emotional state isn't 100%, it's going to make my pain experience that much greater. My pain will feel worse, actually, right? Same thing, if I'm isolating myself and not spending time with the people I love or doing the things I love, then that's actually going to make my pain worse. So that explains a little bit about why chronic pain is so complex and hard to diagnose. But there's good news. The good news is that because chronic pain is biopsychosocial, it means we can also use a biopsychosocial approach to manage our pain. And this is the great news I want to share today. Trying not to trip here. Okay, so for people with scleroderma and chronic pain, you can keep the biopsychosocial framework in mind to choose and mix and match some treatments and approaches that work for you. You need a little bit of everything, right? So I don't know a lot about scleroderma. I did some research. I really like this infographic. It shows some ways that you can all at home contribute to managing your scleroderma and pain. And I'm sure some of you have tried these already, right? Are these looking familiar to you? Eating well, taking probiotics, exercise, particularly pool exercise, maybe in more heated pools. Definitely staying away from trigger foods. We all love chips, I do too. And if you think about it, these can fit into the biopsychosocial model too. Okay, so I'm going to give you some examples of what evidence is showing us are the best ways to manage pain. And this is, it's not going to work for everybody. You might want to try these first, but these are the top ways that we see the most evidence. So for biological pain management, sleep is huge. Everyone with chronic pain needs to sleep well. Eating well. Okay, we've talked a lot about that today. I'm sure you've heard a lot. But that's the same for everyone experiencing chronic pain. Staying active. Gentle movement is so important. I don't know if you've heard the expression, motion is lotion, or movement is medicine. But it's extremely important. And these are some of the best activities that we recommend. Walking. You can even pair walking with walking meditation, Tai Chi. I'm wearing my special dance necklace today because I love to dance. Dancing is great because it reminds you to be light, but it also gets your body moving, and it's fun, and you smile, and then it's contagious. Some people like to do yoga, or if it's too hard, then chair yoga or modified yoga. So again, it's not just about what you're doing physically, but also, am I breathing? Am I using relaxation techniques? And do I have the right therapy around me? There's a lot of different allied health professionals who can help me with day-to-day activities. And, pain medications also will help you get moving. Psychological and spiritual supports can look like this. So having a support group, talking about your pain, being here among others that are also living with scleroderma. This is so important to your social and mental health and emotional health. We also have other therapies such as cognitive behavior therapy. These are really great, proven, evidence-based methods. So I encourage you to try what works for you. And finally, you need support. So yes, you can try these things at home. Yes, you can eat well and exercise, but you also need equal support from the people around you. So seek out what your team looks like. Your team might have friends and family, might have some carefully curated healthcare providers as well, because you do have to connect with people who are going to listen, acknowledge, and work collaboratively with you. So that's the main goal here. And finally, make sure that when you're talking together, you're both focused on improving function, getting out of that downward spiral, getting back to what do I really want to do, what makes me feel like my life is going well. And that should be the focus, because unfortunately, we haven't found a cure for scleroderma or chronic pain. All right, so today I want to give you some of these building blocks. The main message is find what works for you. And we're going to take a little bit of time to share, but everyone's pain management or scleroderma management plan will look different, and that's totally fine. My dad, for example, would not want to go dancing with me, but he might try something else, and that's okay. All right, so I'm going to invite Tiasha up at this time, and she and I are going to have a little bit of a conversation. So before we ask Tiasha some questions, I just maybe want to give her a chance to just introduce herself and share a little bit about how we're connected.
Sure. So I was misdiagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis when I was 19. It was a very stressful time in my life, and I was seeing a rheumatologist who refused to hear my story and hear how the medications I was taking were actually doing more harm than good. And so it was just constantly changing the drugs that I was taking, adding more, and never suggesting anything that was helpful. So I got to a point where, I was very young, I was very frustrated, and I just decided to stop seeing them altogether. And I lived in Fernie, which most people have never heard of. It's a very, very small community, and there are no specialists there. So I sought out my GP and asked if they would help me build a interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary team, and she supported it. She was hesitant to let me say no to all the medications, but I think she recognized that I had to rebuild my trust with the healthcare system. So I was very lucky that in Cranbrook at the hospital there, they had rheumatology patient clinic for specifically people with rheumatoid arthritis. I was able to get some free physiotherapy and occupational therapy, and it started to make a huge difference. I started to feel like I could manage my pain. I had regular appointments that I was starting to notice range of motion in my hands and my arms again. And then I found a new rheumatologist, and it took a lot of convincing. And that this was, I see Dr. Dunn now, but before Dr. Dunn, I had a different doctor who, it was the first time someone was willing to talk to me and hear what was helping me. And they encouraged seeing massage therapists. I even saw a naturopath to help me figure out foods that were causing triggers, acknowledging how much sleep I was getting. And that multidisciplinary team, they saved my life. So, sorry, it's kind of emotional. I didn't expect to be emotional. It's okay. So I'm really grateful for the multidisciplinary approach to pain management, and I think Pain BC has a very important role in maintaining that. So sorry.
Oh, don't apologize. Take a breath. I just want to share that we're really excited to have volunteers like Tiasha at the Pain BC Connect for Health program. I'm going to talk about that in a second. It's actually now called the Pain Support Line. And Tiasha is one of the volunteers that will answer the phone and help people talk about their pain, get them linked up with resources. So this is great. This is very powerful. How are you feeling? You okay? Good.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize. So I'm going to ask Tiasha a few questions, but then I'd also like to hear from the audience if you have anything to contribute. And the first question I want to ask, whenever you're ready, is, so what are some of the self-management resources that worked for you or that continue to work for you to manage your pain? And you can talk about pain or scleroderma or whatever.
Yeah, so I guess most of them work for both aspects. The big one for me was education and awareness. Scleroderma was something that no one had heard of. So to start learning about what that meant and have a legitimate resource that wasn't the internet, which was helpful. It's legitimate sometimes, but all you find is the doomsday statements of like, I'm gonna die in 10 years, and that's not helpful when you're 20. So finding legitimate resources, meeting other people that had scleroderma to get that education and that awareness was a huge factor for me. Like I said, the multidisciplinary team part was massive. Another big thing for me was learning physical adaptations. So it's really hard to acknowledge that you don't have the same you have different limitations. You don't have the same capacity that you used to have at one point. And so learning to be accepting of yourself, and it's very easy because I think most people I've met that have scleroderma are very motivated individuals. We're very independent, and it's really hard to acknowledge that sometimes you need help or you need to make changes. So learning how to do less and realizing that sometimes less is more. I danced pre-professionally. I danced for 20 years, and I had to stop. And that was so heartbreaking because it was my world. And so I had to learn how to slowly introduce that back into my life. And it's taken like a long time to get to the point where I can do that again. But even having it in my life again and having a community of people around me that are supportive and accepting is a really big part of that. Acknowledging triggers, which is a huge self-management tool, I think, as well. Recognizing that there's certain things I really shouldn't eat because I'm going to get GERDs if I do. That was a big thing. And I guess all of that is just time management. Making sure I allow myself enough time to get sleep, that I have enough time to prepare meals that make me feel good, that I do things that I enjoy doing, and that I see people I love seeing. It does sound simplistic. It sounds really, really straightforward, and it's obviously way more complicated than that, but making sure that you have the time to take time out for yourself is a constant battle that we'll always have to deal with, and I think everyone does, but it's just an added challenge when you live with a rare autoimmune disease.
Thank you. So lots of things in your toolbox, things that you're constantly still reminding yourself to do. Some of the things you mentioned were pacing yourself, getting enough sleep, education, and help me remember all the other ones, because there was so much you said, right?
Making adaptations, time management, creating a multidisciplinary team.
And also having people to support you
Support
to do
teams. I'm very grateful that I have a support team.
that. She's looking at her fiance right now. Great. I'm going to run to the second question, but then we'll invite people to share. So the second question is, you know Pain BC a little bit, and from an inside point of view as a volunteer. So I just want to, I can tell you about Pain BC resources, but it's better to hear it from Tiasha. What are some of the resources that we'll show them in a second that have really helped you?
So there's two aspects to this, because I used some of them as a patient, but I also help people access these things as a volunteer for what used to be Connect for Health. I learned about Pain BC when I was studying health sciences. So like many of the students in here, I have a bachelor's degree in life sciences, and I chose to do a minor in political science because I thought there was not enough emphasis on the social determinants of health. And that is one thing that Pain BC is really great at acknowledging, is that your life is far more complicated than just taking a medication to make you get better. And so I think Pain BC really helps fill some of those gaps that the healthcare system doesn't have the capacity or the resources allocated for. And Connect for Health itself is a really cool program, or I guess I should call it Pain Support Line. It's just changing its name as of June 11th, so it's still fresh for me. Some of the people that call in or email us have very, very complicated lives. They're facing homelessness. They can't get a doctor to advocate for them to have the right medications. They need help filling out forms for to become a person with disability, to have that status. They're not aware of what resources exist in the healthcare system. They need help finding new doctors. There's a whole slew of things that they come to us asking for help, and we're able to do that research for them. So the support line basically asks as a research resource. We will help find whatever it is that you're looking for and do our best to connect you with those people. And we also aren't going to rush you out of the room, because we don't have a time limit as to how long that you can talk to us. So we have an ongoing dialogue with people. There's some people who have been clients, I guess, for years now, and they continue to call us just to check in and have that positive reinforcement. And sometimes it's a good call, and sometimes it's, a harder one, more challenging one for them. But there's a lot of great online tools. There's some for like helping setting goals, which are really great. The educational materials on there are really awesome. If you like discussion forums, there's some of those. There's really it's pretty awesome. Podcasts also. If you don't like typing or reading things, there's some really great podcasts that kind of make you feel like, oh wow, there's someone else who's going through this. It might be different, but it's also very valuable.
That's great. Before we open up to the room, maybe you can just describe what you mean by social determinants of health, because that might be a term that's new for people.
Show of hands, who's heard of the social determinants of health? Can I speak up? Oh, sorry, is this better? Okay. Have you heard of the social determinants of health? Yes, okay. So for those of you who haven't, it's the idea that our health and well-being is more than just our biology. So it's your education, your employment, where you live, how much you make, your social networks, your psychological well-being, your spiritual well-being. It's the whole picture of who you are as a person. And of course, a lot of the research that's come out of that understanding has recognized that different socioeconomic brackets tend to have a different, different access, different privileges. And one of the biggest predictor for most illnesses is socioeconomic status. So the social determinants of health really recognizes that if you're in poverty, if you're a person with disability and you can't have full-time employment, and you're really struggling to make ends meet, you're also going to have more psychological issues. You're going to have a lot of mental strain. Your family's going to have a lot of issues. You have less access to the resources that aren't provided for free through the healthcare system. It's harder to eat healthier. It's harder to get places. All of those things create more barriers to well-being, whereas someone who has more privilege, who has a great job and has greater education, which also leads to better jobs, they might still have challenges, of course, but their access to the resources is a lot like, it's a lot easier. It's a lot more reduced for them. So that's kind of the idea between the social determinants of health. And I think it's really, like I said, in my own personal experience, having a multidisciplinary team that was willing to work with me, a lot of them, they treated me for free. I had an OT, a massage therapist, and a naturopath treat me for free. That is like, it's unheard of.
You're lucky. And so that's what Pain BC's pain support line can do. And one of the common questions we get is, I may not have extended health, or my massage therapy benefits have run out. What can I do? So I'm going to show you how to get access to this, and this is great takeaway for the healthcare providers here as well. Is we want people to use it. It's totally free. It's funded through the Ministry of Health. It will help people, because we can't just help them from the healthcare perspective. We have to help them get through life, right? So we're going to talk about that in a second, but I'd like to open up the floor, and thank you, Tiasha, for sharing. I couldn't have said it better. Is there anyone else here with some Pain BC resource familiarity? Oh, Priscilla. Yes, thank you. Excellently timed. What have you used from Pain BC, and how did it help you? Maybe.
First of all, I just want to say that in terms of managing pain, my antidote is write a bestseller and drink champagne. But over and above that, I suffered a spinal cord injury, and it was about 4 months into having had surgery, and I suddenly realized I was in a different world. The pain I was experiencing was unlike anything else. It was in my face, in my mind, in my life. And I was stuck in a dilemma. First of all, there's despair. What do you do? How do you get out of it? Then I realized, somehow my brain kicked in. I don't know where from, but anyway, that really I wasn't alone in this world. There'd be other people who are suffering. And I found Pain BC online, and so it was all done online. And they said, well, you have a membership, whether that's necessary. Anyway, I paid a membership. And then what happened was I found that for several months I was participating in webinars on how to deal with pain, what pain was, and we would work through the workshop. So it would be very much like an hourly session. And then it was open chat afterwards. And I found that really useful, because when you're in a fog and you're not sure what's out there, and you really haven't got a support system yet, or your new days, then something like that was really, really useful. So I think there are a number of webinars, one on what pain is, how to manage it with meditation, and they'd have experts from all around the world delivering the pain. I believe they still do, and the topics are very, very universal and really easy to use. You just go onto your computer at a certain time, and there you are joining a whole host of others. So it's a very useful tool.
Thank you, Priscilla. So we still have these webinars. The webinars that Priscilla is mentioning are always available. I'm going to show you where you access them. And we also host webinars for healthcare providers. They're free, but anyone can join. There's no barrier. The information is there, and knowledge is power. We want to make it accessible for you. Thanks for sharing that, Priscilla. The last question we have is, maybe I can ask Tiasha or Priscilla or anyone here, do you have any advice, or do you want to share what works for you with chronic pain and scleroderma? Do you have any tips?
I think we all get advice from people that isn't necessarily helpful all the time. And so I'm sure everyone's already heard everything that I have to say, but I think the biggest thing for me, if you're new to dealing with scleroderma, is just being honest with yourself. Really recognize what your limitations are. It's really hard to do, but when you can be honest with yourself and say, okay, I just can't do this today, it's a lot easier to walk away from it than to beat yourself up over it all the time. So I think for me, it took a lot of time for me to learn that. I'm pretty stubborn. So it's as my fiance shakes his head, nods his head, yes. It takes a lot of time to learn adaptations, but letting them in is huge, and then slowly letting yourself ease back into some of the things that you used to do. Don't expect that you're going to be the person you were before, because you won't be.
I might invite Tiasha just to walk around with the mic. We have some comments at the back. I'll stick with this one that's plugged in. Yeah.
Okay, I've got a mic here, and when I was diagnosed with scleroderma, I was 40, and I was working, and I was angry. Anger can do all kinds of things to your body. I was a 5-pin bowler, and all of a sudden, one of my lifestyles was changed drastically. And with the help of friends, they said, come on down and watch. Come on down and throw a ball. And this is, my hands were tight and stiff, and I can't do this anymore. And they just encouraged me, like, go 3 frames. Now let's try a game. I ended up going back competitively bowling, which may not sound, but it was huge because I didn't think I would ever accomplish that. I now work with golden agers. Some have had heart strokes or arthritis, and we try to find different ways. But 5-pin bowling, because you're using your brain and every muscle in your body, was my remedy. I bowl twice a week. I golf now. I may not have the durability with my golfing to maybe do 18 holes walking, but I never give up. 2 years ago, I broke my shoulder. There is nothing in the world that hurts as much as breaking your shoulder in 3 spots. After the 8 weeks, I said to the specialist, can I go back to bowling? And he looked at me like I was an idiot. And I said, I don't know why, but it helps. It makes everything better for me. I just does. And I'm back to my regular bowling. So don't ever count your limitations. It may be 1 step, but you can do it. You've just got to want to do it.
Thank you. Can I join you to bowl sometime? That sounds fun. I'm going to add that to our list. I think that's a great message, which is find what works for you. You know, it may not be bowling, it may not be golfing, but whatever it is, if you have a social connection, you're being physically active, and you're embracing living a full and rich life, that's super important. Anyone else want to share anything before I jump to showing you how to get to these resources? This is your time, so however we want to spend it. Oh, great.
Hi, I don't have scleroderma, but all my friends do. I'd just like to encourage people to give themselves the gift of saying no when they have to and not feeling guilt about it. Because everybody does everything they can when they can, but if you need to say no, there's no need to struggle with that.
That's a great reminder for all of us too, but especially for those living with a more invisible and sometimes not easy to relate to chronic illness. So thanks for that. Okay, I think it's a great time for me to actually point to some of these resources we've talked about. Thank you too for all of you who shared. That really makes this so much more valuable. I'm going to sit down because I'm going to do some computering here. So here are some free resources you can try. And I'm going to run through them really quickly, but what's important is I'm going to jump to the website and show you how they work, okay? So there's way more than 4 resources, but today I want to focus on 4. One is the program that Tiasha volunteers with. It's called the Pain Support Line. The second is brand new. It's called Coaching for Health. I'm going to also share with you, I brought some copies today of the Pain BC Toolbox. By the way, I don't want to go home with any of these things. You have to take them all when you leave, and providers take as many copies as you want. And number 4 is our patient website. It's a free online self-management tool. It's for anyone with chronic pain. These are all free, by the way. So I'm going to just run through them. I'll speak about each specifically. But this is the program that used to be called Connect for Health. So on our website, you might still see this logo. That's okay. It's the same program. Doesn't matter. We picked a name now that is even easier to understand. But here's how it works. If you have chronic pain, or you know or live with someone with chronic pain, you can call in, you can email, or you can ask your provider to refer you. But somebody will answer the phone or get back to you, within a day or so. And the idea is that you can ask them to help you with all the stuff of life that maybe you don't have time to talk about in your doctor's office. So here are some of the examples, and Tiasha mentioned some of them, but A lot of us might be in that sandwich generation where we have children and we have elderly parents that we're caring for, and so sometimes we need support with that. Or maybe finding a different healthcare provider, or maybe you're moving and you don't have a GP in your new location. Or maybe you want to go to a massage therapist who has experience and training with chronic pain specifically, and so we can help you with that. Or it could just be, you know, I need help with the paperwork, or I need to apply for assistance. We talked a little bit, it was Fran earlier said, you know, we can help you with those disability forms. So this is a great resource for anyone in the province with chronic pain. And we're not going to ask you to prove it. It's simply there for us to support you. So I do have some bookmarks on the table over there, because I'm going to tell you a lot of stuff, and it's easy to forget everything. But take one of these home, and it will just remind you, like, here's our phone number, here's our email. Anyone can call in and get support. And you might end up getting Tiasha as your lovely volunteer. Okay, this next program is brand new. It's called Coaching for Health. And Coaching for Health is simply that. It's if someone in chronic pain wants to have some one-to-one support, then they can ask their GP to refer them. And you'll get set up with a coach, matched up with someone who has, you know, similar interests, a similar sort of time availability. And the coaches are trained coaches. A lot of them come from the health sciences, but they are lay coaches. They're usually people who are interested in becoming professional coaches. They may or may not have chronic illnesses themselves, but they are highly trained by Pain BC, and the program can run anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks. So this is brand new. It's been launched in February. We are currently looking for more people to join the program, and we're doing a second intake of coaching training. So for the healthcare providers here, we need you to refer people to us, and for the people with pain here, you need to ask your GP to refer you. Okay, so this one's a little different. You do need a referral, but the pain support line, anyone can call it. Any questions about these two? Yes? Great question. There's two ways. I'm going to show you the website in a second, and you can. There's a referral form. You can fax it in. Still using faxes sometimes. Yeah, and there's also an online form too.
And do you have to refer it through MSP then? Is it an MSP supported one? Or?
No, it's
okay.
straight to
Okay,
Pain
good.
BC.
Okay, good.
Yeah. We want to make it accessible, and we have lots of space still. Okay, I'm going to show you the website in a second too, but let me just run quickly through the last two. So not all our resources are going to be perfect fit for you, but I'm going to just share when they might be. So one of them is the Pain BC Toolbox, and I have copies on the table. I've actually printed them out in black and white, but you can look at this online anytime. It's a 28-page booklet that's a really good introduction to the idea of chronic pain and what some of the resources in the province are. So if you prefer to read, you know, something where you can take it home, you know, maybe you have a cup of tea with this, this is great, and providers can email this to you as well if you like to look online. I like to suggest this for people who, you know, are totally brand new to the idea of chronic pain. It's a great way to get started, and it has a lot of the introductory sort of topics. You know, how can I cope? What are some of the best books out there? What do I need to know about healthy living? But if you really want to get into more detail, I recommend everybody go to this website. So even at the break today, if you have your computer or if you want to grab a brochure to remind you at home, the brochure looks like this. This is really where most of the power of our tools lies. And so it's called liveplanbe.ca. And I'm going to jump there quickly in a second, but before I do, maybe I can just ask, why would we call our website for chronic pain and patient resources and education Live Plan B? I'll give you a second to ponder that. So you may have thought of a few things. Some of them might be, okay, Plan B is not Plan A, right? When you live with chronic illness, accepting that your life is going to be completely different is a big part of it. But hey, Plan B can still be very good. But it's going to be a little different than what you had originally planned, right? So it's that concept of embracing the change. But also, you'll notice it's spelled Plan BE. BE is in being well, because if you type in Plan B on the internet, you might get something else. So make sure you type liveplanbe.ca and you'll hit Pain BC's website. Okay, I'm gonna, enough of the slides. I'd like to take you straight there. So you'll have to bear with me as I have to hold the mic. But afterwards, if any of this was too fast, because I'm going to show you some really fun stuff and I tend to get really excited and speak really fast, go to the website and view these help videos. And if you can't find them or if you get lost, call the pain support line and we will direct you there. Our volunteers are trained to do this too. So here we go, live demo time. Let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen? Yes? Okay, first let's start with the Pain BC website, painbc.ca. There's so much stuff on here. So if you're ready to jump in and learn about our organization, come on by here. Healthcare providers is a section just for you. As you can see on the front homepage, in what we call these sliders, you'll have the links to all the things I just showed you. So here's Live Plan B. You can click that, it will take you there directly. Here's Coaching for Health. So if I click Learn More, it will take me to a little bit of a description, and I can download the referral form here. So Fran, this is what you were asking about, and you can fax it to this number. And this one you do need GP referral, but we'd love to have you. And we have some great coaches that are waiting to connect. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the home page, and as you can see, Connect for Health has not been rebranded just yet. So you'll still see this name, but it's the same program. This is the pain support line. So I can click here. It will describe a few of the things I can do with Connect for Health. It has your phone number here. You can also self-refer. So if you enjoy filling out forms, maybe you have an iPad at home, this is great. Or you can just send an email. The idea is it's not a hotline. You may be able to access someone right away, but we can't always guarantee it. But we do now have volunteers Monday to Friday. I think it's from 9 to...
9 to 4, Monday to Friday.
This is very new, so that's why I'm asking the source here. Okay, so are there any questions on how to get to or how to access these resources? If you go to the Pain BC website, you'll find them all right there on the front page. But I encourage you to dig around. There's so much on the website. So for healthcare providers, we also have these webinars. They're free, and you'll see them in our events. But the ones that Priscilla is referring to are on Live Plan B. So I'm going to jump here. liveplanbe.ca is our site designed specifically for you and for the people who you live with or who care for you who maybe don't know a lot about chronic illness either. And so you'll see that there's 4 choices at the top. I would recommend you start with the real stories. This is a great place to start because these are 6 people in our province with chronic pain. They all have different reasons why they have chronic pain. You know, some had motor vehicle accidents, others have juvenile arthritis, but the stories that they share have some very common themes that help us. So one is about how Scott, came to accept that he's going to have pain the rest of his life. How does he make that work for him? And it talks a little bit about his anger. Someone in the room mentioned anger too. Going through that grief and acceptance stage is a big step. I would love for you to listen to Karen's story. Karen talks a lot about how she discovered the pool, and she has a great network at the pool. She goes to the pool for hours every day, and it's changed her life. I think this might be a really inspiring story. So I'd start here, real stories. The second part is pain education, and this is where we have all of our resources. So if you're new to chronic pain, you can watch a video here. That video we saw earlier is also on this site. But as you can see, we have a bunch of different topics, and within each topic there are videos, podcasts, articles. We have some recordings as well. So the webinar recordings that Priscilla referred to are here. And there's lots of tips that you can take home. You can read. They're short articles, and you can sort of explore topics that are most relevant to you. So for example, any item with this sort of wave is going to be an audio file, so you can listen to it right here. You can also download them if you're a podcast person. If you want to look at flare-ups and how to avoid flare-ups, there's some tips here for you. So there's over 200 resources, and I actually am really proud of this site. It's a lot of the work I did. But if you have questions about living with chronic pain, you're likely to find them here. It's in a really nice, accessible format. Okay, 2 more things to show you, because I can't show you everything. But if I go back to the top, I'm going to click on Manage My Pain. And Tiasha referred to this earlier, but on the website, you can do 2 things that are really personal. Okay, there's actually more, but let me just show you 2 for now. So I'm sure you've seen this type of form before. I'm going to guess that you've filled this out multiple times, but this is where you can track your pain, and this is based on the brief pain inventory that providers will use, so the BPI. It'll ask you questions about your pain. It'll get you to rate your pain. And the idea is that you can track symptoms and patterns and see, like, what's making my pain better? What's making it worse? Tiasha, maybe you can take over for a second.
So the idea with the functional assessments is you can do them as often as you'd like. You could do them daily if you wanted to. And I think, is there still a way that you can show these to your healthcare providers, which is really useful as well. So if you're just getting new to tracking stuff, I know for me sometimes it was actually just keeping a diary of like what I ate or what I did and what triggered me and what didn't. And then bringing that information to your doctors can be super helpful for them to help find solutions and help you find maybe what the triggers are if you're not able to see them. So this is kind of an online tool. It's very easy to use and it's very quick. So if you're not really good at packing a journal around, then having it online means you don't have to worry about remembering to bring it with you, and you can share the results if you've created an account, which you can also remain anonymous on, which is helpful as well. So if you decide to join discussion forums, which are on the top right corner of the page there, you can also just share opinions, ask questions, and still remain anonymous. So that part of it's great. And then, yes, so here is the self-assessments. You can print them, download them, and then compare them to previous assessments that you've done before and help yourself figure out what is maybe causing some of the pain that you're experiencing.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry about that. So I think she did a great job. I'm just going to show you what that looks like. So I don't know if you can see here, I'm actually logged in. And this is great if you're the kind of person who likes to see information. And I don't know about you, but I forget once in a while. Do I have another 5 minutes, or I know we're going to go over? Okay, I'll be really quick. So just play around here, but the idea is creating an account gives you more access to things. And this is what I think is really cool. I can print or download these, share them with my healthcare team, or I can compare them. So as you can see here, it shows me the differential. It shows me some patterns over time. Okay, I'm going to have to cut this short, I think. But the idea is take time to explore these. There's lots here for you. Tiasha, could you take this part over for me?
I think we're out of time too. So
okay, I wanted to just share that there's other groups that also provide support. Another group that's free and that is also run through the Ministry of Health is Self-Management BC. Has anyone heard of them? So they're a partner organization. They are separate from us, but they're all great. And these are some of the chronic pain and chronic illness workshops in the Lower Mainland. So depending on where you live, go on their website, which is selfmanagementbc.ca, and you'll see a whole bunch of stuff there. I really recommend these. They work perfectly well in concert with some of Pain BC's resources. Another group is People in Pain Network. So just a quick note to say, whatever works for you, keep doing it, keep exploring. Take a whole bunch of brochures home, because I probably went through this really fast, and explore Live Plan B. There's tons of stuff there. I didn't even show you like a tenth of it, okay? And keep talking to others. It's so important. I really appreciate your patience with my coughing today. Thank you to Tiasha and to all of you who shared. And I'm going to stick around during lunch. If you have questions, please come by. I'll try to keep my germs to myself, okay? Thank you so much.